This is a car that many people forget or don't even know about. And it's made by Hyundai. See, many people judge Hyundai and Kia because of how their cars were in the early 2000s, and because of that, many people don't give them a chance. And I was guilty of this too at one point. Many people also forget that Toyota and Honda went through the same kind of scrutiny during the 1970s. Granted, with Kia and Hyundai, their cars sold mainly on the fact that they were really cheap no matter how shitty they were. They've come a long way since then. In the 1970s, Honda and Toyota were being judged for not being American-made. Now look at them. Toyota and Honda are the two most popular car brands, and Hyundai and Kia are following in their footsteps. Cheaper cars that are arguably the same or better than competitors in the same market. This is my car. I traded in the Sentra the same day as the last shot of the previous video and drove this home. The motor is a naturally aspirated 3.8-liter V6 making 348 horsepower and 295 foot-pounds of torque. This car in particular has an 8-speed automatic transmission. Yeah, I get it. If you're not driving a manual, it's not actually a sports car. But hear me out on this. The manual Genesis Coupes had problems with the transmissions. Whenever you're trying to power shift going from first to second gear, you're going to get locked out. The same thing if you're going above 3,000 RPMs and you're trying to shift into sixth gear. And I didn't feel like dealing with that. In order to fix that, you'd have to get an engine leash, which is basically an engine mount, but it's towards the top of the engine. A new transmission mount, different transmission fluid. I didn't feel like dealing with any of that shit. And also the automatic is faster anyway, so quit being an automotive purist snob and suck a fucking dick. This car is too much fun for my own good. You know, something that annoys me about this car is that wind whistle you can probably hear. One of the only downfalls about this car is that the doors are pillarless, so the window is nudged up against the roof line, and it has a rubber seal. And if there's even a slight crease in that rubber seal, you're gonna get wind whistle, and it's kind of annoying, especially at highway speeds. But that's why I crank up my music so I can't hear that shit. So a lot of people compare this car to a Korean Mustang or something like that, but it's more so along the lines of a Korean 370Z, mainly because that's its proper competitor in the sports car market. And I gotta say, for the price of this, it's actually pretty good. I wasn't expecting this kind of quality out of a Hyundai. Brand new, this car was around $33,000 in the top level trim, which this is, and I got it used for around 22 grand, so it's a pretty good deal actually, to be honest, especially considering for 22 grand I get Brembo brakes, a Torsen limited slip diff, Bilstein struts, leather wrap seats with heaters, which actually come in handy in these not really harsh Georgia winters, but you know, just for when I want my ass a little toastier than normal, it works. Ride comfort it's alright, it's pretty decent. I'm not gonna say it's great or anything because, you know, it's more of a purpose-built sports car, so it's gonna be a little rough around the edges in some areas, which is to be expected. Steering is a little bit heavier than most cars, but that's because it still uses hydraulic power steering instead of electric. So the upside is you actually get to feel more of the road and feel more connected with the road instead of numb steering. But the downside is it's a little bit heavier, but you get used to it really quickly. I got used to it within a couple of days of driving the car. Engine noise is pumped into the cabin from a little hose connected to the air filter that runs through the cabin filter. But I gotta say, it actually still sounds pretty good. The cabin is actually pretty well insulated from noise, so I don't realize how loud the car is being most times. Oh my god. This car just might get me killed someday. But I'm okay with that because it's fun. get a cheap sports car that's good quality with a 3.8 liter V6 making 348 horsepower. Like, that's just hard to find nowadays. It's hard enough to find a car that's just rear-wheel drive without going for a Camaro or a Mustang. Or, you know, Challenger, whatever. It's hard to find a rear-wheel drive car in general without it being American muscle. So to find one made by South Korea, that's just fucking insane. This car originally came out in 2009 with a 2.0 turbo engine, and as well as a 3.8 liter V6. So it had two engine options when it first came out, which means more variability. And the 2.0 turbo was still faster than the BRZ that came 4 years after it. Granted, the BRZ probably handles a little bit better than this, but depending on the driver, you can actually keep it in there pretty good. And the 3.8, it's really quick. You would have never expected that from a V6, especially from a Hyundai V6, you know? The original 3.8 that came out with it in 2009 originally had around 306 horsepower, but when they updated it in 2013 for the BK2 models and gave it GDI, it got bumped up to 348 horsepower, which is still a fucking lot for a Hyundai. And that's one thing that kind of gives this car a bad rap. Just the fact that it's a Hyundai. You know, a lot of people, even today, still shit on Hyundai, even though they're really good. Which kind of breaks my heart a little bit, to be honest. Because I actually used to be one of those people. I never knew this car existed up until about a month and a half before I went and bought it. Which is probably why they discontinued it in 2016. Nobody knew about them. Nobody talked about them. You didn't know about the communities based around them unless you were in them yourself. And that's just a little crazy in my opinion. Now, real quick, I was in this same area last week when it was raining, and I'm gonna flash a clip of it real quick. I was spinning wheels in 4th gear. Can't really do that when it's dry, but when it's wet, holy shit. I was still spinning in 4th gear going uphill. Needless to say, she's fun. She's got some spirit to her, I'll give her that. This car is just about everything I had asked for. Funny enough, I was actually looking at a Kia Stinger before this, and there were some things that the Stinger had, or didn't have, I should say, that I wanted. And then I looked at this car, and it had everything I wanted. Even had an option for a manual, even though I got the automatic. My reasons being, the manuals had bad synchros, and I didn't want to deal with garbage transmission, so I just got the automatic. And besides, who needs an 18-year-old kid with 348 horsepower driving down the road with a manual, you know? I'll just be fucking dumping the clutch and doing burnouts everywhere I go. We don't need that. Besides, the automatics are faster anyway. That's just how it is with modern transmissions. The automatics are faster than you can blink nowadays, especially with the ZF. This one isn't the ZF, it's an in-house built Hyundai transmission. That guy's flying, that's what's up. Me too, bro. But this transmission is designed by Hyundai and is still pretty quick. Another benefit is it got little flappy paddles on the wheel, but I prefer to use the stick. Just pop it over to the left and up for up, down for down. Keeps it simple. This car is everything I could have asked for. Now keep in mind, I went from a Nissan Sentra to this. So I was used to 28 miles a gallon city. If I baby it, I get 28 miles a gallon on the highway in this thing. So you're not gonna buy this car to save gas, just know that. You know, anybody who buys a sports car to save gas, they're not driving it like a sports car. They're driving it like a fucking Prius, and they shouldn't even have it. Fuck it, I'll go this way. I ain't never been this way before. What's the worst that could happen? really big car. It weighs around 3,500 pounds, give or take. But it doesn't feel like it whatsoever. It feels a lot lighter than that. The engineers at Hyundai made one seriously great fucking car. An underrated fucking car. This is something I wish more people knew about. And you'd actually be surprised by the aftermarket support around this car. You can get fucking body kits for this. Like, I find it crazy. You can get a decent amount of body kits and, you know, different body panel customizations on a car I had never even fucking heard of. That's insane. Like, everybody always talks about the 370Z and the BRZ, FRS, you know, Toyota GT86, all that shit. Nobody ever mentions the Genesis Coupe. And I think people should start mentioning it. Now, seating position, it's what you expect for a sports car. It's, you know, further back. Your legs are more, not really spread out, but how do I say this? You're not sitting in a chair like you would in an SUV, because of course, you know, it's lower to the ground and all that type of stuff. And me, I'm about 6'3" to 6'4", so my head almost hits the roof, which kind of sucks because it would make it more difficult to take it on a track since you got to have a helmet. It would probably be better if I didn't have the sunroof because, you know, they have to put extra structural integrity supports around the sunroof area to keep the body from flexing, all that. Y'all know what I mean. I feel like if I didn't have the sunroof, I'd have like an extra couple inches of height to play with. But other than that, it's still pretty good. Like, my seat isn't even as far back as it can go. If I put my seat all the way back, I could barely touch the pedals. And I've got long fucking legs, let me tell you that. It's pretty good. So one thing you want to keep in mind when you're filling it up at the pump, you don't have to put 93 in, or, you know, 91 if it's in your area, but it's kind of recommended. Like, you can do 87 all day, but fill it up with premium every once in a while to give the injectors a good cleaning. That's what I do, at least. Well, I've actually started putting premium in it non-stop nowadays, but, you know, for the most part. Quick illegal UE. Don't hit the dirt, don't hit the dirt, thank you. Another thing, this car has a wide turning radius. It's a thick boy. Anytime you hit the gas in this car, you can't help but to fucking smile. And I love the sound that comes from it too, especially with even the stock exhaust. This thing crackles and pops from the factory. You'd never expect that from a fucking Hyundai. I know I keep saying that, but you just don't expect any of this from a Hyundai. Oh, and this car is completely stock too. Other than the stuff that came from the factory, like the Brembos, this is completely stock. The only thing on here that's different than what came on it is pretty much my necklace hanging from the rear view mirror and the two stickers I have on the back windshield. Everything else is just as it comes. You know, this car kind of scares me a little bit sometimes too, which is a good thing. Because if your car doesn't scare you sometimes, then one, it's not fast enough, and two, you might just be a little cocky and then the car is going to humble the fuck out of you. And trust me, she will humble you. Oh, one more thing. The stock brake pads on this fucking suck. Like, with these stock pads, it feels like my old fucking Sentra, which is kind of sad. Yeah, she'll get loose. She has no troubles with getting loose. If the Nissan Sentra represents the first taste of freedom you get, then the Hyundai Genesis Coupe represents your first real adventures into true freedom and adulthood. The Genesis Coupe is for when that same kid graduates high school and gets their first good-paying full-time job. You know, the kind that makes bank. So now they can actually afford the sports car made by Hyundai that they've only known about its existence for about 2 months prior to driving 50 miles to the nearest dealership to trade in their old car. If the Sentra's music equivalent would be something like Skinner's Freebird, Tom Petty's Free Fallin', Sweet Caroline, and the like, all of which in some form have a connection to freedom and happy times, the Genesis would be much like it most times. But in a certain mood, on a cloudy day, her song would be more akin to Where'd You Go by Fort Minor. For those who don't know, Fort Minor, aka Mike Shinoda, is in Linkin Park and is responsible for the rap portions of their songs. In the song's basis, it's about how you feel when someone you were close to starts drifting away from you because they aren't around very much anymore. You wait by the phone, waiting for a message or a call, but there's still an emptiness that can't be filled by anybody else. And how you feel a bit of resentment because of it, even though you're not really mad, you just miss that person very much. That's what this car can be like sometimes. A fresh look at things you've seen before, as well as an excitement for what comes in the future. But it can also be a sad reminder of old memories and how things aren't the way they used to be anymore. You know, this reminds me of a little story from freshman year of high school in my government class, funny enough. So I've always been the type of kid to listen to an adult's advice just because I know for a fact that they know more than me because they've had more experience going around things. But there was one thing that I didn't quite listen to, and I understand it now. My government teacher was talking about how when it comes to friends, your friends in high school, you may think that they're going to be the best friends you have for the rest of your life, but that's rarely ever the case. More times than not, it's going to be the friends you make in college that are going to be the ones that stick around for the rest of your life. And I remember thinking to myself, man, what's he talking about high school friends? I'm still talking to all my good friends back in Florida and shit. Like, man, I'm gonna be close to them forever. And 4 years later, I understand perfectly what he was saying back then. Because even now, all the friends that I've made through high school and all the friends that I don't talk to very much anymore from Florida, I understand what he meant. I had a lot of friends that I just lost connection with from high school, and it's only been about 8 months. That's a life lesson I thought wouldn't come true, but it ended up happening. Just because you're close to somebody for a few months to a year, it doesn't mean that you're always going to be close to them. That's just how life is. The park bench you once upon a time sat at and talked with a friend for hours, letting the summer breeze envelop the space, is now only filled by you. There aren't any more weekly phone calls, and conversations are few and far between. Every now and then you dwell on what you could have done differently, just to try and hold on to that friendship you had, and make those good times last a little bit longer. But sometimes you really can't do anything, and you've got to learn to accept that. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. Funny enough, Regular Car Reviews posted a review on this car about a week or so ago, depending on when this goes up. I've had this script in the works since about December, so I've been working on it for a long time, and I've just been getting around to getting the shots done recently. So, like I said last time, go and check them out. They're the inspiration for me doing this, and I've been working on just how the reviews are set up and all that kind of stuff. Definitely going into more detail is what I'm trying to work towards, and you've seen that in this video. And just more talking about how the car feels and this, that, and the other. So, anyway, thanks for watching, and have a good one.